Hi, my name is Micah, and I'm a Territory Channel Manager here at Baumer, and I'm here today to give you an inside look on how to demo an O300 or O500 Smart Reflect sensor. This is intended to be an informal, behind-the-scenes video to supplement the official Smart Reflect demo video for trainees at Baumer. In a separate video, I give a full demonstration of the O300 and O500 Smart Reflect sensors, but for this video, we'll just go over some sensor theory, the materials you need for demonstration, and some tips and tricks for making an impactful demo on any customer. To start, let's go over some basics of the next-gen Smart Reflect technology. The O300 and O500 Smart Reflect sensors are small-profile photoelectric sensors. They are housed in an identical housing to all the other O500 and O300 sensors from Baumer. The reason we can talk about these two sensors in the same thought is that for all intents and purposes, their only difference is their size, their sensing distance, and the cable connections. The O500 Smart Reflect boasts a 600mm maximum sensing distance with a larger enclosure, while the O300 Smart Reflect has a 300mm sensing distance. The O500 uses an M12 4-pin cable, while the O300 uses an M8 4-pin cable. Before we get started with this demonstration, let's cover some of the materials that you'll need to demo the O300 and O500 Smart Reflect sensors. Whenever you demo this sensor, you'll want the Smart Reflect sensor itself, black and white cards, a mirror, a power supply, a flex bar, a screwdriver or Allen wrench, and a diffuse sensor with background suppression, preferably one that's made by a competitor, but more on that later. Smart Reflect is a technology from Baumer that is technically classified as a light barrier sensor, but behaves more like a retroreflective without the reflector. This is what differentiates Baumer Smart Reflect sensors from anything else. When you're giving a demo, it's important to not give away this detail too early. Well, it's important to be able to recite all the technical specs and other stuff. It's way more important to be able to create a narrative with Smart Reflect. You want to create in the customer moments of curiosity and, wow, I didn't know that a sensor could even do that within the customer. To do this, it is best to first demonstrate a normal diffuse sensor and its performance on black and white targets, both straight and at an angle. You'll also want to point out the sensor's blind spot. We suggest that you obtain a competitor diffuse sensor to start this demonstration. Be sure not to belittle or talk badly about whatever competitor sensor you choose to use. The point of showing a normal diffuse sensor with background suppression is not to show that Smart Reflect is better than it. It's to show that Smart Reflect is in a completely different universe than any other type of diffuse sensor. In fact, talk up the competitor diffuse sensor that you're using by saying things like, this is how a good diffuse sensor is going to behave, or this is what it looks like. Just as a quick note, in the official demo of Smart Reflect that I did, I used a Baumer diffuse sensor for copyright and other marketing reasons. Don't let this throw you off. This was done intentionally, but all the explanation and dialogue surrounding the diffuse sensor will still hold true when you watch it. After you've shown how a normal diffuse sensor behaves, you're then going to want to take the diffuse sensor off the flex bar and put either the O500 or O300 Smart Reflect on. While you're doing this, transition to talking about Smart Reflect by saying something along the lines of, now we can see here that this Baumer sensor, it can't possibly be a light sensor because it doesn't even have a receiver or a reflector. Even though the sensor is technically a light barrier, you want to keep that mystery of what type of sensor it is alive for as long as possible before the big reveal at the end of the demonstration. From there, you can begin to show how the sensor operates. You can start with the same thing you did for the diffuse sensor with the white and white at an angle. Then you can go up to the black targets with a steep angle on black. And this should be impressive when you get to the steep angle on black, because a normal diffuse sensor wasn't reliable in detecting black at an angle. Then test the sensor's blind spot and act almost surprised when the sensor shows that it has no blind spot. This is impressive because all diffuse sensors have a blind spot because in order to work they need light, and when you cover it up, there's no light getting in there. Then pull out the mirror and say something to the effect of, no diffuse sensor can detect a mirror because all the light energy bounces off in different directions. Then you can demonstrate Smart Reflect's reliability in detecting a mirror even at a steep angle. At this point, you reveal that you've departed the world of diffuse sensors and that Smart Reflect is actually a light barrier sensor that doesn't require any reflectors or receivers. It looks like a diffuse sensor, but it operates with all the advantages and reliability of a light barrier sensor. Smart Reflect, it isn't like anything else out there and is only available from Baumer. Now make sure our clients know that. At this time, we're going to dive into some frequently asked questions. Question number 1. What is the IP rating and operating temperature for O500 and O300 Smart Reflect sensors? Both the O500 and O300 Smart Reflect sensors come with a standard IP67 rating. However, Baumer's catalog also includes hygienic enclosures of next-gen sensors that are rated IP68 and 69K. The operating temperature for both the standard plastic enclosure and the hygienic models are between -25 and 60 degrees Celsius. Question 2. How prone is the Smart Reflect to nuisance trips in air? So next-gen Smart Reflect sensors use a focal point on the target to sense whether the given target is within the parameters taught to the sensor. This allows Smart Reflect to be able to operate without any reflectors or receiver units. If the beam of light is broken, the sensor will be triggered and an output will be given. A differentiating feature of the next-gen Smart Reflect is that there's a 5% dead space at the end of the focal point. This is used for shaking and vibrations that may come from anything like a conveyor belt or an assembly line, and this reduces nuisance trips in errors in operation. Question 3. How does Smart Reflect perform in high ambient light? Photo eye sensors are often susceptible to suffering performance if there's a high ambient light in the application's environment. On a traditional photo eye sensor, you would just go in and turn a pot to adjust the gain on the sensor and would make it a little more powerful in high ambient light environments. Both the O300 and O500 Smart Reflects use an optical A-line ASIC technology to handle high ambient light. The O300 and the O500 Smart Reflect are designed to monitor the gain of the sensor and will automatically adjust to optimally detect a target. This is a particularly useful feature in manufacturing environments where there are changing levels of ambient light and targets vary in color. Question 4. What are the different levels within the sensor, and how can I access them? In the settings of the O500 and O300 Smart Reflect, there are 3 different levels that are important to understand. When you first power on the sensor, you'll note that there will be a dull blue light that will appear in the teaching cradle. This indicates that the sensor is ready to be taught. Now, when you lay your screwdriver or whatever metal object you choose to use, the Q-Teach cradle will shine brilliantly and signify that the sensor is in the first level or teach mode. And if you're ever confused about what level you're in, know that the sensor flashes once a second when in the first level, twice a second when it's in the second level, and 3 times a second in the third level. Pretty hard to remember. In the demo video, I showcased the first teaching mode, which is the most common use in the sensor. After you've engaged the first teach mode, position the target where you want the focal point to be, then lay the screwdriver flatly in the Q-Teach cradle and remove it once the sensor stops flashing. Then both output LEDs will flash a couple of times and then eventually it will turn solid. If the sensor keeps consistently blinking on and off, then there has been an error of some type in the teaching process and you must repeat the process again. After the error, the sensor will revert to its previous teach mode until you teach it otherwise. After you've taught the sensor correctly, you will immediately be able to use the sensor with pinpoint accuracy. For reference, the second level on the O300 Smart Reflect serves no real purpose. It's a really weird quirk of the sensor that you don't need to worry about. The third level of the sensor is an important tool designed to tell the operator if they've selected a good target for the sensor. It's an advanced feature that helps act as a signal intensity indicator. When you bring the sensor into the third level, you'll see that the sensor will begin to flash rapidly. The better the target presented to the sensor, the faster the sensor will flash. This indicates a stronger signal because there's excess gain available within the sensor. Conversely, the slower the sensor flashes in the third level indicates that the target is harder for the sensor to see because there's less excess gain. Question 5. Are next-gen Smart Reflect sensors zero reference? Why is that important in applications? The O300 and O500 Smart Reflect is a zero reference sensor. And what this means is that most sensors have a gap between the face of the sensor and the zero reference point where it can actually start seeing an object. This is because you need enough room for light to go out, hit a target, and reflect back to the receiver. Smart Reflect sensors differ in that they can detect objects right up to the face of the sensor. This is because the sensor knows how far away the focal point you taught it is, and if it doesn't see that taught focal point, you will get an output from the sensor. I hope that this behind-the-scenes look at Smart Reflect demonstration has been helpful. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me or any other Baumer Territory channel manager. We'd be happy to help you out. Thanks for watching.